I want to go to France.
France should be ashamed.
It's inhumane.
Sébastien Olarin, the mayor of Bray-sur-Roya in southeastern France, greets visitors outside his community's tourist office. The town of over 2,000 inhabitants sits above the Mediterranean Sea in the border region between France and Italy.
I'm looking for the brochures, maps, and travel guide for our Alcotra EU project.
Alcotra stands for the Southern Alps Côte d'Azur region. This European Union project subsidizes cross-border cooperation between French and Italian municipalities, further dismantling the border between them.
We're the connection between Piedmont and the Côte d'Azur.
The area is home to 10 picturesque communities on both sides of the French-Italian border, including Bray-sur-Roya.
We rely on close connections with Italy. The beach closest to Bray is in Ventimilia, in Italy. For skiing, we go to Limone, in Italy. We can't get by without cross-border relations.
The border region combines spectacular mountain scenery with plenty of French-Italian history. Until the 19th century, this was the most important trade route from the Piedmont to the Mediterranean, especially important for transporting valuable salt. The northern Roya Valley was part of Italy during World War II, and the border was disputed until 1947. Today, the Italian fortresses are decaying. More than 70 years after the war, there's nothing to suggest that the French-Italian frontier runs through here. It's a border-free part of Europe. Southward, toward the Mediterranean, the road leads past old customs posts and border crossings, French and Italian. Both are crumbling. First, the customs officers disappeared from the European Union's internal borders, and then the border police too. No passports are checked here anymore. At least, that's how it seems. But an hour's drive south, on the coast, rules are enforced that the EU only allows in exceptional cases. France guards its border between Ventimilia in Italy and Menton on the Côte d'Azur. For a border between two EU neighbors, the presence is massive. French border police watching over an internal European Union border crossing. Some time ago, the border post was even expanded. It now includes a facility where France can detain undocumented migrants for 24 hours. The reason for the security is the arrival of refugees and migrants from mainly African countries. Most reach Ventimilia via the Mediterranean and southern Italy.
It's inhumane, really inhumane. The French don't want them. Nobody does. They send them back to the border. Not people like us, but people who have fled their countries and come here.
Homeless people have been on the streets of Ventimilia for years now, many of them young. They keep hoping to find a way across the border.
What?
Milano.
Milan.
Yeah.
Did you try to cross the border already? To France? Do you want to go to France?
Yeah, I want to go to France.
Did you try to cross the border?
Yeah, I'm not trying first.
The police drive them out of the city center. The Italian government in Rome has refused to provide state support for the people here and blames France for the misery. Many in Ventimilia agree.
France should be ashamed. It's not fair. It's not right that we Italians have to take in all of these masses.
A better way would be to distribute them among all the countries of Europe and create structures to help them integrate. Unfortunately, they don't often speak the language of the country they're in. They practically don't exist and they can't work either.
The authorities closed the only reception center 3 years ago during the COVID pandemic for fear of infection. It was never reopened. The Catholic Caritas charity hands out food for 2 hours in the morning. In the early evening, volunteers cook for the homeless. Most of the people helping out belong to nearby churches.
I used to work for the railroad. Back then, people were getting on trains to go to France. Ventimilia has always been a transit station. There's no political will to help these people. If it weren't for the churches and volunteers from Italy and France, then there'd be nothing here.
The food is served up in a car park. One of the volunteers is building contractor Filippo Lombardo. He's decided to help out with cooking once a week for a year. His group works on Thursdays. They used to have to pay for the food themselves. Now they have some funding from private donations.
At first, we calculated for around 120 grams per person. Now we're trying to make a little more. We want there to be enough for everyone.
Filippo Lombardo says more people arrive every day.
They say that the border is closed, that no one can get through. But each day we count an average of 150. Yesterday there were 180. On average, 100 to 150 people pass through Ventimilia every day.
Despite the guarded border, many migrants do manage to cross into France. This is where the Roya River flows into the Mediterranean. Upstream in the southern Alps, the river draws tourists and summer hikers, as does the French town of Bray-sur-Roya. Since 2014, the European Union has subsidized the border region with more than 200 million euros for tourism, joint nature conservation, and cross-border cooperation among mountain communities. But in the middle of the coronavirus pandemic, a natural disaster struck. Storm Alex surged through the Roya Valley. French communities were cut off and had to be supplied from the neighboring Italian valley.
The Roya River level rose by almost 10 meters. The bank was washed away. Monuments, churches, and the city hall were flooded. Homes were destroyed.
Many relief workers came from the Italian side of the border, especially from Borgo San Dalmazzo in the neighboring valley. The Italian community had agreed to become a twin town with France's Bray-sur-Roya 2 decades ago. Even before the storm, the communities had applied for money from the EU. Since then, Mayor Sébastien Oloron has been primarily focused on reconstruction. He wants to get tourism going again, including with EU funding for a border-free Europe.
Bray and Borgo San Dalmazzo are twin towns. We're the two main partners in the Alcotro program, but all the communities in the two valleys benefit from the project. In total, there are 10 municipalities in the area that benefit. The problem is that since the storm surge, the connecting road is closed because of tunnel works.
The storm destroyed the access roads, making the tunnel impassable, and with it the direct road connection across the border to Bray's Italian twin town. 3 years on, things haven't changed. The reopening has been postponed again and again. So while EU funding supports the cross-border work between the communities, The nations themselves are taking their time. Mayor Sébastien Olaran has tried to exert political pressure. Until last winter, he could only connect virtually with his Italian friends.
It's very important, especially for the morale of people here, to know that the ties with our Italian friends are strong despite the difficult circumstances. It was winter and a bit chilly. This is a traditional costume from Borgo San Dalmazzo. We perform traditional dances and music.
In December 2022, there was finally a joint celebration after the pandemic and the storm surge. The mayor welcomed guests from Borgo San Dalmazzo. Among them was the Italian town's cultural representative, Michela Galvagno.
That's us in Bray. That's me.
Now, those in Borgo San Dalmazzo, at the northernmost end of the mountain communities, have returned to plan the future together with their French neighbors.
It's about our common economy and culture. We want to take back what Storm Alex and COVID took from us.
We've created tourist brochures, information plaques, and this website, which highlights the different communities throughout the Roya and Vermenagna valleys and their various monuments.
One such monument in Borgo San Dalmazzo commemorates over 300 Jewish people from all over Europe who were deported from here to Auschwitz. Italians, French, Germans, Dutch. Most had fled the Nazis first to the south of France and then to the mountains on the Italian side. They ended up imprisoned here in a concentration camp. The exhibition is designed to inspire reflection beyond the deportations. This panel is titled "The Desperate Escape Through the Mountains." Many locals here hid fleeing Jews. Exhibition director Roberto Bianco draws a parallel to the present.
Xenophobia, anti-Semitism, racism, eugenics. These are things that are still very present in our society. They've caused Jewish people to flee since the end of World War I, when nationalism literally exploded in Europe.
Themes of flight and refuge are still relevant today.
Europe is very forgetful. We forget what we should have learned from history, the set of values upon which our Europe was founded. That's our humanity when we're confronted with the issue of migration.
On Thursday, Filippo Lombardo cooks dinner for the migrants in the parking lot in Ventimilia. He, his wife Danna, and their friends have been helping once a week for over half a year. The volunteers exchange the latest information via text messages. Right now, many people from war-torn parts of Eritrea, Somalia, and especially Sudan are in the city.
With all these wars around the world now, the families who can afford it tell their children to leave.
It's said that human traffickers are already waiting for the refugees at the Ventimilia train station, so the volunteer cooks try to warn the migrants about them. This map shows the best-known secret route. It's also possible to cross into France by regional train, but smugglers charge a lot of money for that basic information. Filippo Lombardo and his group try to inform migrants that they don't have to pay a smuggler for a train ticket.
Often they've already heard from Lampedusa who will arrive here and when. They know their surnames and whether they have money. The buses don't go to the station themselves. They send young people from the same countries. Sudanese, Eritreans, Somalians.
The traffickers usually take the migrants toward France via a supposedly secret path that everyone in Ventimilia knows about. It leads through neighboring Grimaldi, overlooking the Mediterranean. From here, you can see the yachts in the French resort town of Menton.
It doesn't matter if they come from southern Italy, Lampedusa, or via the Balkan route. As soon as they arrive here, they're held hostage for their money.
The hidden path is the easiest route, but it's dangerous. It leads straight across the highway. Before setting out, migrants leave behind their last belongings, hoping that if they're caught, the French border patrol won't find anything to prove that they've just come from Italy.
Two or 3 months ago, I found out that the money for the mafia people no longer came in cash. It used to be the case that they sent children ahead to collect the international money transfers from the banks. Now it's all done over the internet.
The migrants and the volunteers have spent 3 hours cooking together, not counting shopping and preparation time.
It's very spicy, nice and hot. A lot of people like that, salty and spicy.
Time is short. Down in the parking lot in town, other volunteers are getting ready to provide meals. They all rely on each other.
I always say that as people, we're already born into problems. I'm a migrant too, an Italian, but still a migrant. My mother left Calabria in southern Italy in 1956 and came here. She taught me that if 3 people can eat at one table, then 5 or 6 can too. So everyone has to decide for themselves if they help others. That's a good mindset.
Dinner is provided every weekday at 7 p.m.
There are already some migrants who want to eat.
On Sunday, different congregations take turns cooking lunch after church. The Catholic nuns help out every day, and each day the parking lot is transformed into a dining hall for over an hour. Hardly anybody wants to talk to us on camera, mainly for fear of being deported. The EU still applies the rule that refugees and migrants have to initially remain in the country where they first arrived. So many here don't want to say that they're headed for France.
No, I don't have intention to go to France.
Okay.
Yeah.
You want to stay here?
I want to stay here.
Okay. Why are you in Ventimilia and not elsewhere in Italy?
Definitely if I get accommodation here in
okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And you're also from Sudan?
I'm from Sudan, yes.
What do you think about the war and the political situation in the south at the moment?
Definitely the life in Sudan is not okay, and that's why we are coming here. Yeah. We wouldn't say that we are here for intention of maybe getting something, but because of the insecurity that we are facing in Sudan and the killing of the civilians in Sudan, and that's why we came here.
Usually, the Italian authorities grant the migrants a suspension of deportation, allowing them to remain in Italy temporarily for humanitarian reasons. That's in line with what's known as the Dublin Regulation. But they're not allowed to travel to other EU countries, making it a hard border for the migrants. It's a rule the volunteers can't understand.
The problem is not Europe. It's the Europeans who cannot comprehend that it's better to give these people something to get by on than to put up with the ones who steal, the traffickers. They're the ones who cause problems. The migrants have a right to come here.
Even as the EU funds programs to help unite communities in the French-Italian Alps, migrants and refugees find the border as present as ever. Exhibition director Roberto Bianco says people can learn a lesson from how communities in the region responded to refugees in the previous century.
We're talking about people who were living in the middle of a war, one which left our country in ruins. When those people back then saw a stranger here, they'd open their doors to them, hide them, and protect them. The example of those people shows us how we can restore some kind of balance after such a complicated history.
Rumor has it that local people from Ventimilia, somewhere up in the mountains, know all the secret routes, and sometimes show travelers the way.